you were interviewed a couple of weeks ago, and you had lost members of your family in Gaza. How many members of your family did you lose?
At the beginning of the bombardment, I lost six of my extended family, my cousin Aya and her husband and all of her children, together with her mother-in-law and father-in-law and whoever was in that house that was bombarded by Israeli airstrike. Only two children survived, one with severe sort of injuries until now in intensive care. But down the bombardment and until then, I have lost count of how many I and many other families have lost members of their own. I think you will not find one family in Gaza now that has not lost members of their families. You will not find any. So everyone has been affected by this. It's horrific. It's really horrific in every sense. What is happening in Gaza is no longer can be characterized as even a war. And the term war does not apply on Gaza to start with, or on the Palestinian territories, because war happened between two sort of countries, two armies. War does not happen between an occupier and an occupied. That's not a term that can be applied. But even that term, war, cannot be applied anymore. This is, in every sense,
Okay.
mass murder and mass destruction. Many lawyers are talking about a premeditated, genocide. This is truly the people of Gaza. Talk to them. They describe the Armageddon.
Husam, first of all, my condolences to you, our condolences to you for what has happened to your family. You talk about mass murder and genocide, and you're right, there are some people who use those terms. Of course, we also speak to the Israeli army, the Israeli Defense Force on a weekly basis. And what they tell us is that what they want to do is they want to get rid of Hamas because of what Hamas did on the 7th of October. You will have heard them saying this too. And the only way that they can do that is by targeting them wherever they hide in Gaza. And that unfortunately means that unless people move out, and no one's saying that's an easy thing to do, unless those people move away from those areas, that they potentially will die too.
Well, since the 7th of October, we have been warning the world privately as ambassadors with governments here and everywhere and publicly that Israel will instrumentalize the moment to implement an old new plan. And this, what happened. Going after Hamas does not mean bombarding hospitals, schools, UN shelters, churches, mosques. Does not mean that you shell and carpet bomb people everywhere. It does not mean that you murder 10,000 innocent civilians, among them almost 50%.
Yes, children. I know, but Husam, yes.
The argument. Let me have one sentence.
The
argument Hamas take these people hostages is really racist, criminal, illegal, and against international law. If somebody takes 10 children hostage in a hospital in London, I am certain British authorities and police will not bombard that hospital. And therefore, international law is clear. International rules were created after the horrors of the Second World War to establish rules to prevent conflicts and rules if conflict erupt, rules of war. Israel has literally bombarded these rules, and Israel is physically, literally bombarding the UN itself.
Well, okay, but hang on a sec. Husam, they say that they are acting in self-defense because Hamas came over the border, they murdered 1,400 people, some of them children, they took 240 hostages. We don't. One second. And so they are acting in self-defense. That is what they would say.
You believe that this is really a defining moment for all of us, including for people like you and for the media. I mean, the media is there to convey the truth. Really, they are in a state of self-defense when they starve 2.3 million people, including half of those 2.3 million, half are children, cutting water, electricity, medical supplies, that diseases are breaking out in Gaza. This is really self-defense. Self-defense when you kill 74 UN staff, aid staff. This is self-defense when you murder 50 journalists, your colleagues, the most noble profession. I think Israel, together with its backers, has made such a bad name for self-defense. This is offense. This is crimes against humanity. These are war crimes, and Israel will be taken to justice and to international justice.
Okay.
And we are pushing for the International Criminal Court to begin its investigation immediately. They have been dragging their feet, and Karim Khan, the Prosecutor General of the ICC, must begin his task immediately.
I want to ask you just finally about Hamas. Now, just correct me if I'm wrong here. You represent the Palestinian President, Mahmoud Abbas. He's the Fatah leader, runs the Palestinian Authority. Hamas took over Gaza 17 years ago. There have been no elections since. What is your perspective on Hamas?
I represent Mahmoud Abbas and the Palestinian Liberation Organization, the PLO, and the State of Palestine, recognized by the majority of the world and has a seat in the United Nations. So it is the PLO that is the government of the State of Palestine, and the PLO is the umbrella organization that represents all Palestinians and has most of Palestinian factions except Hamas. And therefore, yes, Palestine and the Palestinian people have legitimate sole representatives. We here in London represent the PLO. In Washington, I was before that. So we have no issue of representation. And Hamas does not represent the Palestinian people, and they don't even claim to represent the Palestinian people. But we who do have offered Israel and the world 30 years ago recognition. We recognize the State of Israel. We committed to international consensus and resolutions, and we committed to non-violence and negotiations. Israel 30 years ago was supposed to do one thing: end its colonial expansion, settlements, and roll back its occupation. It has not done so even one day since 30 years ago. And the international community, the US-led international community, was supposed to enforce these agreements, and the US-led world did not really do much to hold everybody accountable. And we are here today. We still commit to these principles, but Israel must be held accountable in really ignoring all these opportunities. We have started a different path 30 years ago, and perhaps we can turn this very tragic moment into a momentum, and a global momentum towards ending this carnage, towards hope, providing hope for the millions of Palestinian hopeless and helpless people and children right at this moment.